Welcome, everybody, to the 100-Year Lifestyle, where we are transforming health and longevity worldwide so that you and your loved ones can live at 100% for 100 years and beyond. And my good friend who's with us today, Dr. Gilles LaMarche, originally from Ontario and then Texas, and now here in Marietta, Georgia, working at Life University. Welcome, my friend. So excited to share this time with you.
Dr. Plasker, it's an honor and a pleasure to be with you on this fine day, like every other day that we get to hang out together.
Yeah. And the first time we really hung together was not in any of those places that I mentioned. It was all the way on the other side of the world. And tell us where it was. You remember, right?
Down under in Melbourne, Australia, where we really got to know each other, sat down and had lunch at a beautiful restaurant down by the canal, and discovered each other and found out that we were on parallel paths on a mission to really enhance the health of humanity. So we've been friends ever since.
It's pretty cool. And you know what I always appreciate about you? You don't go away, man. You keep showing up, and that's very rare. There's so many cool chasers in this world, here today, gone tomorrow, but not the bald guys like you and I, man. We're sticking around and I think you're doing your best work ever. Quite honestly, I feel like the same way about what we're doing for people. So thank you for your persistence and your wisdom.
No, thank you for all you do as well. And thank you for the comment. But I wake up every day going, I actually get to do this again a day. And I live my life from I want to, I get to, I choose to. Every day is a beautiful day, and every day has something wonderful to offer. And so when we can share the insights that we've gained over decades of life and help other people make such discoveries for themselves and their families, I mean, what a paycheck that is.
Yeah, it really is. And I've always appreciated, you've always been so supportive of our work with 100-Year Lifestyle and with everything that we've always done. And now here you are, I think, next level, living that for yourself, taking on a new adventure of regaining and rediscovering your youthful track and field talents and abilities, athleticism. And I want to talk about that, but I know it's a journey to get to this point. And you're going to love how it all turns out, everybody, because it's kind of cool. It's inspiring. And you're going to want to do some of the same things that Dr. LaMarche has taken on, I have a feeling. So talk to us about what you're doing and just have at it.
Well, before I do that, I'm going to give the audience a little bit of a history because, if you've been well all your life and all of a sudden you attempt something, well, that's super cool. But if there was a time in your life where you were unwell, and we were actually given a terminal diagnosis, told you were going to die, and you overcome that and then can do what I'm working on, that's a different story altogether. So in the spring of 2003, practicing chiropractor, seeing lots of people every day, I got diagnosed with a terminal condition called primary pulmonary hypertension. That's back pressure from your lungs into your heart. For those who care, it was measured at 57 millimeters mercury of pressure. The normal is 15, which means that the back pressure from my lungs into my heart was 4 times greater than normal. And it caused a secondary issue because your body has this amazing ability to adapt when there's a lot of interference. And my heart had grown to 2.5 times its normal size. So if you put your fist out in front of you, that's roughly the size of your heart. Now bring your other fist beside it, that's twice, and now spread it out a little bit. That was roughly the size of my heart because my heart adapted to this back pressure. And for a number of months or years that this was happening, I had no symptoms. And all of a sudden one day I had serious symptoms and ended up, in a physician's office and got diagnosed with primary pulmonary hypertension. After seeing multiple ologists, cardiologists, pulmonologists, respirologists, you name it. And they said that the only thing that would save my life was a double lung and heart transplant. You heard that right, a double lung and heart transplant. They basically said, your heart's finished, your lungs are done. If you're going to live, you need somebody else's heart and lungs. And I was like, that was so outside my paradigm. So I researched that. I researched, obviously, the condition to understand it even better. I researched how double lung and heart transplant recipients live their life. And I thought, not the quality of life that I want. And after conversation with my children, I made the conscious decision that I would transition. And so temporarily, because I was looking for someone to take over my practice, temporarily I would use Ventolin, an inhaler. about every 30 minutes, 2 or 3 puffs every 30 minutes while I was in practice, so I could breathe enough to take care of the patients that were before me, and just repeat that and then go home and rest and come back kind of idea. So finally, I found somebody to take my practice over on the 14th of April in 2004. I retired, and I really went home to do what people do when they know they're going to die. I did all my preparations that you would expect somebody to do. And then on the 15th of May, 31 days later, I woke up, and the first thought I had was, you're an idiot. You've been, preaching, teaching the chiropractic paradigm of health and healing for 25 years or more. There must be something seriously wrong with your spine and nervous system. And then my second thought was, well, how could there be? You get checked by a chiropractor every week or two. And it was really the third thought, Dr. Plasker, that really woke me up. And that was, but never by the same chiropractor. In other words, I was not a practice member in any practice. My patients, my practice members got better care than I did. I was like the cobbler whose kids have holes in their shoes, or the plumber who has leaky faucets everywhere in their house. I thought I was being well taken care of, but I wasn't. I hadn't had a regular reevaluation in years. I had not had an x-ray of my spine in decades. No chiropractor in my community kept a chart on me. It was like, if we went out for lunch together, I'd go to his office or he'd come to my office. We'd check each other. So it was very, very low quality care. So while all the noise died down in my head, I made an appointment with my former office manager, went in and had a thorough consultation, examination, x-rays, nerve scan, everything that we did for our patients, had that done for me by the chiropractors who had bought my practice. And lo and behold, we discovered that I had serious subluxations in my upper thoracic spine. So from the 7th cervical to the 4th thoracic, my spine in that area was a complete mess. And important to note for people listening in, I had no musculoskeletal complaints, pain, anything. I was fully functional on the musculoskeletal roadway, if you like, but I was dying. And I started getting adjusted every day because these young chiropractors said, well, we'll adjust you a few times. We'll see if that might help you. And I went, no. If this is going to help me, we're going to have to go at it. We're going to have to go at it hard. We've got to change this, because my life is dwindling. I could see myself dying. I mean, I couldn't walk 100 feet unaided. I couldn't go up a flight of stairs from the first level of our house to the second level. I couldn't do any of that stuff. And by then I was like now 49 years old. And so I started getting adjusted every day. And by the end of August, so this was in May, by the end of August, my pulmonary pressure had dropped from 57, normal being 15, but it dropped from 57 to 27. So it was more than 50% better. Within 1 year, I had normal pulmonary pressure. Within 2 years, my body adapted again, and I went from a heart that was this big to a heart that was this big. And I honestly have been thriving ever since. I've been able to do whatever it is that I want to do all the time. I got well within a 2-year period. So by 2006, I was completely well. So here I was at 51, healthier than I was at 48. And I am going to be 68 my next birthday. And about 6 or 8 months ago, I had this thought. That wouldn't it be great if I could train again? And I've been running 5Ks for like a decade, but if I would train to go back to my discipline in track and field, which was the 400 meters, which is like once around the track. And so I've been training, and after meeting with a coach, an Olympic level coach, I'm currently working at qualifying for the World Masters Track and Field Championships that's going to be held in Budapest, Hungary in 2023. And for me, it'll be the celebration of that 20th anniversary, right? 2003 told you're going to be dead in 2 years or less. And 2023, my vision now for 2023 is hitting the tape at the finish line and actually winning the World Masters Championship. Now, I didn't have that at the beginning. My first thought at the beginning when I started having that conversation with my wife was, I think I'm just going to figure out where I could compete with in a Masters Championship, like somewhere in the United States. I just want to run a Masters event, like just once more in my life. I want to run a track and field event, whether it's in Atlanta or Chicago or Miami, wherever it might be. And as I started training by myself, and then I was observed by a coach who then started coaching me, he changed that in my mind. He said, you have the talent. It's obvious that you had the raw talent when you were young. We've got to train you up. You're older. We've got to train you up. But I believe that we can train you up to be competitive on the world stage, of course, at the master's age level. And so right now I'm working to get my time in the 200 below 30 seconds. I'm close. I think that maybe by the end of January, I should be able to do a 200 in under 30 seconds. And by that, at that point, once I can do that, then we know that I should be able to break 65 seconds in the 400 meters. Even though I ran it in 48.1 in the past, I'm not going to run it at 68 years old at that speed. But if I can break 65 seconds, which I believe I can now, that makes me competitive on the world stage in the masters category. So that's what I'm doing. And like, you know, we talk about kicking A, like putting in 100% effort to something that's actually possible, because the human body has this amazing ability to adapt and to perform when we set our mind to it and when we have a strategy, obviously.
Yeah, and we're rooting for you. I can tell you that 100%. We're going to follow you. We'll see how you do when it happens, and we're going to report your victory. I'm really excited about that. I want to go back a little bit, though, because you said a few things that we talk about a lot that as a great example of mindset. We have a saying in the 100-Year Lifestyle that your innate intelligence will organize around the thoughts that you think, the choices you make, and the lifestyle that you live. And
100%.
It's really true. And here you are. I want to go back to when you thought you were dying and you got that diagnosis. And we see it in our practice. I know a lot of the doctors that we work with and train around the world, they see the same thing, where people buy into a diagnosis or a prognosis, and they give so much credibility to the prophets of doom, more so than they give to the healing power of the human body. And you, even as a grounded person who had been believing that for years in practice, somehow you got bought into it to where you retired from practice, and you had a meeting with your kids that, hey, I got to get my affairs in order and I'm going to transition. And so what do you say now to people? Because we have so many people, especially today, post-COVID and all that stuff, a lot of people waking up to truth and reality about health and healing, seeing the world in a different light, but still being triggered by fear. How do you explain a lot of that to people, of how to think about themselves, how not to buy in, protecting themselves from that fear? What do you say to those people?
So I would tell you that I did not have any fear. And I had been on what I thought regular chiropractic care, but obviously I wasn't under good regular chiropractic care. But I bought into the diagnosis because I was at a point in my life, I just had no fuel left in my tank. I was so tired every single day. I couldn't breathe. The shortness of breath was so severe. When you can't even go up a half a flight of stairs walking slowly. And I was like, man, I just can't live my life this way. And so I bought into it, thinking that I've already done everything else, right? So I was under regular chiropractic care. I eat clean. I drink water. I was exercising prior to having this respiratory difficulties. I was doing everything that people do to be healthy and stay healthy. What I missed out on was that I did not have a full, clearly functioning nervous system. So I speak to people about my experience. I'll say, I'll ask people, what are you doing to be well and to stay well? And I can interject and say, okay, so I thought I was under regular chiropractic care. Even speaking to practitioners, are you under care? Oh yeah. I see a friend of mine every once in a while. I said, do you make your appointments? Do you follow regular reevaluations? Do you follow the protocol that you follow in your own practice with yourself? And the majority say, oh, no, doctor, heal thyself idea. So I come from that space and help people understand that the power that made the body truly heals the body, provided there's no interference. And our job as practitioners, and my job for me personally, is to discover, am I interfering with my body's innate ability to do what it's called to do? I mean, I had a brother once who died of a massive heart attack, younger brother, who died of a massive heart attack at 50 years old. But he'd drink a big bottle of Pepsi like every single day. Ended up with type 2 diabetes, ended up with cardiac issues because of it. but he was interfering with his natural state of health and was unwilling to learn, was unwilling to make the changes that would have allowed him to become healthy. So once I had my discovery, I was willing to make any change that would allow me to be healthy. And the number one change I made was to go to a chiropractor regularly, the same chiropractor who could actually observe the function of my spine and nervous system, restore that function to normal, relieve the interference, and then my body healed like it's designed to. So I can speak from that space because I've had that experience.
Yeah, and monitoring you with a level of consistency. And I actually can relate to what you're saying, not at the level that you experienced it, but when I was, and I still do travel a lot, speaking around the country and around the world, schedule is tough. You know, our hours are hard to find somebody that we can go to regularly. So I would do the same as you. I would like have a different chiropractor in every port, so to speak. And so it always felt good to get adjusted, always felt good, but it's more to just feeling good. Like in our practices and in our office here with Dr. Corey, we are monitoring people on a regular basis. We check people on a regular basis. We know their spine. We know their nervous system. We see how after one adjustment, how the rest of their body adapts, how the nervous system adapts. And that's kind of what you're talking about. It's not having random regular care, but having what we call it lifestyle care on the 100-Year Lifestyle, getting lifestyle care. And I'm sure that you noticed this, and this is an important concept because people, one of the sayings that we also have is the intensity of your lifestyle care depends on the intensity of your lifestyle. So for example, if your lifestyle is not very intense, if you meditate 5 times a day and you eat perfectly healthy and you don't have any stress, then you need less lifestyle care. But if you start training for a 400-meter race and track and field, you need more lifestyle care. And that's not because of something where we're doing wrong on our side. It's because of what you're choosing to take on in your life. So talk about how you adapted yourself to the intensity of the care and the way that you take care of yourself with this new challenge that you set forth to achieve.
And so now it's not about how I feel, it's about wanting to know how my body is functioning. So I think from a space of intentionality, I became more aware. I mean, I'm more aware if there's just a little something that's just not right. You know, if I put my spikes on and I start to warm up and go, okay, something is just not right. There's no pain involved anywhere, but to develop that level of awareness that it's really about function. And we know, having been in practice for 4 decades, we know that symptoms are always the last thing to arrive and the first things to disappear. But when the symptoms disappear, it doesn't mean that the function is restored. So I now have, I get checked, twice a week, every week. If I'm training hard, I might go 3 times a week to get checked to make sure that everything is well balanced, that my function is accurate, exactly the way we want it to be. And because I have an Olympic level coach, let me tell you that he could spot if I am like off by a degree or 2 on something, like a hand motion or my shoulder motion or the way my foot is striking. He was like, you need to go get checked. And he's noticing something. Even though I'm asymptomatic, there are no symptoms there.
So yeah, those are some of the signs. Those are some of the ways that you know, just through some of the body mechanics that you are using when you're training. And, it's interesting because, for me, it's 36 years in practice. And what I notice is that so often that the area that hurts is either an area of referred pain or an area of protection. So what I mean by that, for example, like we'll see people, we had a girl come in today and she was acute low back, disc injury. She's fit, she's young, she's healthy, but the level of spasm on her left side was causing excruciating pain. But her cause of her problem was not on the left side. The cause of her problem was on the right side. And she got, after her first adjustment, it was like it released. And she said, well, why did it feel so much better? And I said, because the protection doesn't need to be protecting you anymore. And so there's that protection part, and then there's the referred pain part. And then I'm going to let you take this for a little while. The referred pain is, and everybody knows what referred pain is. I find, at least in our practice, that so much of pain is referred pain. And we know about that from a heart attack, people that have arm pain but don't have chest pain and they're having a heart attack. That's referred pain. Somebody that has sciatic pain or leg pain when the cause is a disc in the low back, that's referred pain. It's the pain is in a different spot than the cause of the pain. Talk about from a clinical perspective, maybe with symptoms in your experience, and then also from an athletic perspective, how you know that your body is not injured in a certain area, but maybe it's just trying to protect you.
Well, again, I think it's just having that heightened level of awareness on your ability to do daily tasks, and then your ability when you're attempting to perform, either at a practice or at a meet or whatever it might be. But you have to intentionally be paying attention. So for years, I didn't have the intention. I just went on and did my stuff. Now, I mean, I pay attention to how my body is responding when I awaken. I pay attention to my body's responding when I get in and out of a vehicle, when I get on a treadmill, off a treadmill, when I'm on a bench, working my upper body, because sprinting, requires a lot of upper body strength as well, or when I'm on the track. So I'm just paying attention to the finite details of how my body is functioning. And of course, how my body is feeling. I also pay attention to that. But feeling for me is the last thing of importance, because you could have malfunction for months, if not years, before you ever feel the effects of that malfunction. So when the guy says, all I did was I bent over to pick up my shoe, my back went out. Well, no, your back didn't go out that day. You were having issues with your spine that were not symptomatic. And then you loaded and overloaded and were unaware. You loaded, overloaded, you were unaware. You just kept loading and overloading. And all of a sudden, one day your body said, I'm done. And it sort of like gives up on you in that moment. So people come in thinking, oh, well, if it just went out like an hour ago, can't you just put it back in a minute and I'll be fine? What they don't understand is that all of that just built up. It built up to the point where it's like the piece of straw that breaks the camel's back, that old adage that we use.
And I think that's kind of what happened in your situation, and maybe in my situation, traveling, going to see a chiropractor in every port. And I would go in and say, you know what, I just was on a plane for 12 hours and it hurts right here. Will you check me? And they'd be like, sure. And they'd give me a little adjustment, but it wasn't the cause and it wasn't getting to the bottom of it. And my spine was probably not as healthy as it needed to be. And so now here you are, you've made all these choices and you're fit, you're strong, you're healthy. And here you are at 68 years young, having more fun than ever. When are you going to retire, man?
Never. I've retired twice and it was boring both times. And I think that we are meant to serve. And as long as I am able to serve and bring good to the people that I serve, I'm just going to keep. You can call it work if you want. I call it play. I just tell my kids I've never been to work a day in my life. I mean, and I saw, I was in my practice many hours. Now as a vice president at Life University, I'm at the university many, many hours every single day. But I do it out of, again, because I want to, I get to, I choose to. Everything I do by choice. And there's this joy of doing it. And it's not to say that sometimes in the little day when you're overcome with, there's a lot of burdens there. Sometimes there's so many moving pieces that you've got to manage. And I still feel the stress once in a while. I go, okay, we've got to manage this, got to manage this, got to manage all these pieces, try to bring the whole puzzle together. But at the end of the day, I was like, hey, I put in 100% effort today. I did the best that I could. Whatever comes now, I've got to wait till tomorrow to take the next step.
Yeah, and that's really wisdom too. And I think I always ask, people, why would you're just figuring some things out probably. I mean, think about how much smarter, wiser, hopefully you are today than you were 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And I think in the world that we're living in today, wisdom is not overrated. Wisdom is something that real wisdom experience should be appreciated more than it actually is. And I don't understand why people would want to put their wisdom on a shelf and let it begin to rot away when the world needs, like you say, that service from a wise place, while also understanding, and this part of wisdom is that the world is changing. But there are some things and principles that are not changing. And I think that's what I love 36 years in practice. And I don't know about for you too, is that I was talking to somebody the other day, is that I've never had to change my story. Like the principles of the story that we talk about every day with our patients and our communities, we've never had to change our story. And when we started saying that, living to 100 is it's birthright time, it's not borrowed time. And now we're seeing how this National Academy of Sciences just came out with healthy longevity as their number one important goal. And
it should be.
Right. And AARP just came out with basically they're paraphrasing 100-year lifestyle now. And Edward Jones just put out with a report, a financial report, basically paraphrasing 100-year lifestyle. And these are principles that you and I basically grew up with from a chiropractic and a lifestyle perspective that we've never had to waver from. I mean, for me, it makes me feel like I need to work even more and scream it from the rooftops. And I know you're doing that too. And how does it feel to know that you could wake up every day now knowing that, you know what you stood for is real and true and right?
I said it to somebody today. I said it to somebody yesterday. I was in a couple of meetings in the past 2 days in Chicago. So I just came home late last night, but I was having a few conversations with different people. And I was like, our principles were true 100 years ago. Principles are not beliefs. They are factual. A principle is a fact. When you follow the principles that we were taught, that we teach our communities, and when people follow those principles, they get well, they stay well, and they get to live their best life. It's that simple. And the minute that you steer away from the principles that the body has this innate ability to heal, that all organic systems in the universe are conscious, self-developing, self-maintaining, self-healing, provided there's no interference, the minute you move away from that, you move into a different paradigm. And so those of us who live in this paradigm have held steadfast, for me, for decades, with my children from the time they were born. They were educated that way. When this thing called the pandemic was brought forward in the media 3 years ago, we did not waver how we live our life.
Or worry.
Never worried. I've never had fear over it, never worried whatsoever. We lived our life the same way we always live our life. There's no need to interfere with something when it's working well. Let's follow the principles of health and healing. Let's continue doing what we've always done. And at the end of the day, hey, I've caught the flu every once in a while, like somebody else, because I was tired. My immune system was weak. But I know the best thing to do is to strive to maintain a good neurological function and a highly effective immune system. And when you do that, you live your best life every day.
Yeah. And we know the relationship between the nervous system and the immune system. And we have said many times since the pandemic, just because we're not afraid doesn't make me reckless. And just because you are afraid doesn't make you noble. The reality of it is when you are grounded in the reality of what we've talked about during this call, this interview, which has been fantastic, by the way. I always enjoy when we get together. It's exciting to know that people like you are walking your talk, walking the talk, and being a living example of what's possible. And so why don't you leave us with some closing wisdom or thoughts about what you would like people to, if you could choose a takeaway for people, an intentional takeaway for people from this time that we've spent together, what would it be?
I think I'd close with wanting people to really pay attention to the statement that I mentioned just a few minutes ago, that all organic systems in the universe are conscious, self-developing, self-maintaining, self-healing, provided there is no interference. And our job as humans is to discover where is the interference in our life that could cause us to have difficulties, because otherwise it's the way the body works. You get a sperm cell that meets an egg cell, and as they connect, there's a spark of electricity that goes off, and life starts there. You don't have to tell the two cells to connect. You don't have to tell them to replicate. You don't have to tell the cells to replicate to the point where they create the neural streak And then from the neural streak, which is ultimately ends up being the brainstem and the spinal cord, brainstem, spinal cord, from that, all the organ systems grow. I mean, most people don't understand that your cardiovascular system, it grows off of that neural streak in the embryological stages. Your digestive system, your reproductive, it all grows from there. So there is a direct connection between your brain and your body, every single part. And that communication is through the spinal cord and the rest of your nervous system. So when you maintain a life without interference, or you remove the interference, or you correct the interference, or you minimize the interference, you get to live your best life. So interference comes in many ways. We talk about thoughts, traumas, toxins. Well, what are you putting into your body? What you put in your body matters, because everything that you put into your body, it's from those ingredients that your body extracts the required elements to build new cells, to build new tissues, to renew your organs. So if you're putting crap in your body all the time, you're interfering with your body's ability to create healthy cells, right? If you're putting, toxic thoughts, if you're living in fear every single day, if you're living in negativity, if you're not choosing to discover the true value of unconditional love, first for yourself and then for others, if you haven't yet discovered the power of just being grateful, like I carry a gratitude stone in my pocket everywhere I go. Why? Because it's a metaphor for me. It's my anchor. It reminds me, even in moments of difficulty, because we face them, everybody faces them. In moments of difficulty, we can choose to be grateful. And when you choose to be grateful, it affects your physiology. You go into what we call the parasympathetic aspect of your nervous system, which is where you thrive, which is where you rest, you digest, you create, you think. That's where you want to live your life, in that parasympathetic state. So that would be my closing comments. Reflect on the statement that all organic systems in the universe are conscious, self-developing, self-maintaining, self-healing, provided there's no interference. And then pay attention to where there might be interference in your life and make the discoveries required to eliminate the interference. And sometimes seek the counsel of people like Dr. Plasker, either through the 100-Year Lifestyle blog, everything that he writes about. Like, pay attention to the information that's there, because they are true principles. And principles are that. They are not belief systems. You don't have to believe in a principle for the principle to work in your life. You don't have to believe in chiropractic for chiropractic to work in your life if it's determined that you require a subluxation correction. You don't have to believe that good food is going to be better for you than drinking a can of Pepsi every single day, because they're just principles of life.
Well, wisdom personified, Dr. Gilles LaMarche. Fantastic. Appreciate you so much for your friendship, your support, your commitment, your willingness to share. And thank you, everybody, for being a part of this journey. We are transforming health and longevity worldwide for you, your loved ones, living at 100% for 100 years. We're going to have a great 2023. We're really excited about being a part of your life and your family's life. Next level. So, my friend, I'll see you soon, somewhere
Absolutely.
in some city, making a difference for some people. Love you, man.
Love you too, buddy. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure and an honor to share this time with you and with your audience. Always ready and willing to serve.
And thanks for being with us, everybody. Talk to you next time. Enjoy a sensational century.